the 21st of June. We'll start off with the Karakia. Thanks, Phil, if that's okay.
Morena koutou. Whakatakata hau ki te uru, whakatakata hau ki te tonga, kia makina kina ki uta, kia mataratara ki tai, e hi aki ana te atakura hei tio, hei huka, hei hauhu, tihe, mauri ora.
Thank you, Phil. Health and safety statement, Dave. We tend to do that every meeting and probably councils are used to doing it, so I'll take it that it's read. Apologies, we have apologies for Mia Len and John's as an alternative standing in for him. We also have apologies for Philip Buckthorpe. Any other apologies on the?
Just Councillor Maxine, I know she's an alternate, but she wants to put her apologies in for late.
Okay, thank you. Any other apologies? If not, can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Claire, and second by Eugene. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thanks. So, confirmation of the agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder? That was true and correct. Thanks, Andrew. And a seconder. Thanks, Jeanette. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay. Disclosures of interest. Anyone with disclosure of interest on the agenda today? Oh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Public forum. We have got someone sitting in the gallery there, which is good morning, Rebecca Blight. If you want to come forward and just have a seat. Sorry, I don't know what you're presenting because I just saw you sitting there, so I got Dave to go down and ask. But yeah, we do have a public forum for 5 minutes. So yeah, if you could introduce yourself and yeah, why you're here.
Tēnā koutou i te whare, he uri tēnei no te tai rāwhiti, ko Rebecca Bright tōku ingoa. My name's Rebecca Bright. I'm here in my capacity as a mum. I have a son who is year 9 at St John's College. We live in Cambridge. We're not the people living in Cambridge that own racehorses and yachts. We're among the normal people that live in Cambridge. Yes, we do exist. My son started this year at high school, as I said. For term 1, he caught the bus home every afternoon, and that went fine. As I understand it, there were 2 buses at the peak after school time at the 3:46 pickup from Hillcrest Warehouse, and that system seemed to work okay for getting him home. As you will all be aware, Boys High is just down the road from St John's College and has a very large number of students, a lot of whom do live in Cambridge. So what seems to happen is the after school bus fills up with Boys High boys. The bus puts the fully loaded sign on and then drives past everybody else all the way back to Cambridge. When the assist bus was on in term 1, there was a second bus. So you wait 5 minutes, the second bus shows up. The Cambridge kids or anybody else then hop on and everybody gets home in one piece. The new timetable came out April 15th, which I looked forward to with great interest because we were told there will be more buses, which is very exciting. There are more buses, 7 p.m, 8 p.m, 9 p.m, but the assist bus is gone. And what this means is after school every day, except Thursday, and I'll come back to Thursday, the bus drives past the St John's kids and other people in that area, and they have to wait until 4:50 to get the bus back to Cambridge. So they get back 5 o'clock or sometimes 5:30. Thursday's different because Boys High finishes early on a Thursday. So Thursday seems to be fine. I've been in contact with the council, with the Ministry of Education, with the bus company saying, what can we do? So that's why I'm here, because I'm running out of ideas. I'm told double-decker buses are coming for the Cambridge line, which to me would solve the problem because you've got more capacity. But for now, we're in a bit of a dilemma that my son can't get home easily on those days, and to the point that we're trying to carpool, we're trying to finish work early and do different things, but it's actually, the purpose is to get him home safely and for him to do it himself. And I think this is a service that we can expect as members of ratepayers and people that live in this area. And had a quick look at your policy and I see that there is a policy for assist buses in peak time. So I'm not sure why the assist bus was discontinued for Cambridge. But I would strongly encourage if it could be considered to bring it back.
So that just lasted for the first term, did it, Rebecca?
As far as I'm aware, we didn't need it before that. My children were at school in Cambridge. But yeah, it finished at the end of term 1 and we've got a pile of kids waiting on the side of the road, texting their parents, the buses run past us without stopping. What do we do? So just to put that to the committee to, if there's anything that can be done there before the double-decker buses arrive. It wouldn't have to be a full-size bus. It could be a small bus if there's a spare small bus around that would do the job. But just to get these kids home, they're only 13, some of them. They're just little. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, Ben first.
Yes, thanks. Thanks for coming along, Rebecca. Yeah, I'm a Waipa councillor. Yeah, so that's Cambridge is our area. And I'm pretty distressed actually to hear that this stuff is happening. I do know that those double-decker buses aren't far away. Like, how many children do you think are left standing on the side of the road? Like, what numbers are we talking about?
Well, I personally know of about 6,
Yeah.
but that's only the ones that I know through
Yes, yeah,
my
that's right.
children's
I'd
primary
imagine.
school. So
Yeah.
it might be 15 or 20 at a guess.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I feel something does need to happen. And actually, in fact, I thought there was a different bus system for special character schools. But my kids went to St. John's as well, and we had a special character bus. Yeah.
That's no longer available, unfortunately. The ministry's handed that over to
Oh, so it's
the
all,
regional bus service. Yes, I've
yeah.
been in contact with the ministry to see the
Yeah.
Ministry of Education, I mean.
Sounds like you know more about it than I do. Yeah.
I'm trying
Yeah.
everything.
So, is there any opportunity to investigate why that assist bus was dropped and whether or not there's any chance of reinstating it? I'm looking at Phil. Yeah.
I think the answer is yes. We can definitely look into that. I don't have the answer in front of me, I'm afraid. The double deckers are on the way. We've just received some pictures of them being manufactured, actually. We had hoped that they would be in place for the beginning of the next school term, but it now is looking more like into August. So there will be a period of next term as well where we won't have the double deckers. So we do need to find a solution that gets us to that point. So I'm happy to take the action, and if I could get your details, Rebecca, I'll talk to you direct.
Yes, and I'd be happy for you to get in touch with me. Yeah, Claire. Yeah, if there's anything more you think that we could do, or yeah, you're worried, if you'd like some more information about how things are going. Yeah, thank you.
So Rebecca, thanks very much for coming along and in our public forum and coming forward. I know it's hard for parents even to, to come into this environment. Your concern will be addressed fairly well straight away. If please be in contact with me if you don't get anything.
Great.
Okay. Thanks, Rebecca. Okay, next we have got we're going to move, unless anyone has any concerns, all the minutes. So we've got the Regional Transport Committee meeting, we've got the RTC hearing subcommittee meetings, and then the future proof public transport subcommittee meeting. Is anyone, yes, you're happy to move, Angela? Can I have a seconder then? Thank you, Kevin. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, item number 8, we've got the appointment of the disability sector representative. And so, Dave, yep.
Good morning, members. This is an administrative item similar to the one we tabled at the last meeting for the alternate. And it is just a legal requirement that the committee appoint from the nomination that has received. Shannon Jones, sitting over here, is the new Access and Mobility representative, sitting on both, hopefully this, once the resolution is carried, and the Future Proof Public Transport Subcommittee. And if there's any questions, happy to take those.
So, Shannon, would you like to just say a bit about your background, or would you like to just introduce yourself and So this is the first time I've met you. So you just have to press the right button there and it should come up red. Yep.
Cool. So my name's Shannon. I'm relatively new in this sector. I've only been there since March. Prior to that, I had 16 years at Fonterra. So I've jumped in the deep end in a completely new role, but yeah, absolutely loving it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can.
Awesome.
Together.
And welcome aboard. You'll find all the councillors very approachable. So if you need any, questions answered or any help or anything like that, please feel free to approach us
Awesome.
anytime.
Thank
So
you.
there's a resolution on the board. Can I have a mover in a second? Thank you, Claire, and a seconder. Thank you, Adrian. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Awesome. Okay, director's report. Phil.
Good morning, committee. So look to just take you through the report in sections and happy to answer questions on each as we go. So the first item is around an update on road safety. And there was a question at the last meeting around raising the profile of the movement of heavy vehicles, farming vehicles. And we just provided an update there around the social media campaigns that we've run on that. We had a good presence at the Field Days event last week in association with the New Zealand Transport Agency, the Police, Ministry of Transport, ACC, neighbouring regional councils and lots of district councils. And I don't know if anybody went to the stand, but there were a couple of crashed vehicles there. One was a 1-star and one was a 5-star, and the difference between them was very significant. There was a seatbelt restraint test which showed you the impact of a seatbelt being worn. A whole load of information around driving while impaired and the impact that has on your perception of distance and other things. So I think that was a really useful event for us to be part of, and it was with directly the right community for lots of the issues we've seen. Coming up in August, we have the Fleet Day again, and that's just to encourage members to attend. Given a very quick update on community transport following the report that was presented to you, I think at the last meeting or the meeting before that, and the positive media articles that there have been on that around the region, which has been helpful. I didn't ask for questions on road safety or community transport. Is there anything on that anybody wants to? Yeah, true. You have asked us previously to engage with the Ministry of Education and the issues of school bus access is a topic that has come up through this committee multiple times. In the background, we've been working with the Ministry of Education and are looking currently to develop a statement that sets out the roles of the organisations and ensures that we work together. And as stated, we're looking to bring that back to you at the next meeting. In terms of the budget, there's some news there around what was included within the statements at the end of May. And David's dived out of the room, but the progression of information from the New Zealand Transport Agency is now starting to appear in terms of the budgets for certain parts of the programme being confirmed. We understand that the final version of the government policy statement is due out around the end of June, and that may well come with the next phase of statements around funding, but the final programme isn't confirmed until after all regional land transport plans are submitted by the 1st of August, and then we believe into September we'll get the final confirmation of all of the budgets. And that affects us as a regional council in the same way that it affects each of your territorial authority council long-term plans. So we'll all be hearing that news over the coming weeks and months. The regional council's long-term plan has progressed through deliberations and is due to be received for adoption next week. There's a package of transport projects in there, but in the context of the regional rating special topic that was consulted on in the plan, the deliberations have led to a position that the principle is supported, but that the options that were consulted upon are off the table. And we'll now work with all of you, with each council over the next months to identify new options that will be tested and modelled, and looking to work with you to bring together shortlisted options for consultation as part of our 2025-2026 annual plan. So that will be back out for full public consultation as part of that process. And then the final paragraphs really relate to a paper that's later, but just to give you an update on the regional land transport plan process, but we'll cover that more in the paper later. Happy to answer any other questions.
Okay, any questions for Phil? Sorry, Rodney, I forgot to welcome you online as well. If not, there's a resolution on the board that the director's report be received. I'll move it. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Eugene. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, the regional long-term plan adoption. Welcome, Julie and Kimberly, is it? Yep. I've caught you on the hop, rolling quite fast this morning. Morning, Kana. I always pronounce your name, so I struggle. Sorry, apologies. Kana. Welcome, team.
Good morning, everyone. Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair, tēnā koutou councillors. My name is Kimberly Bell, Policy Advisor in the Transport Policy and Programs team. And sitting alongside me today is our Acting Team Leader, Julie Hanson, and Kana Sakai to answer any questions. And I'd like to acknowledge other staff members who couldn't be here today, so sending their apologies, who are also integral in developing this plan, Madeline Alderton and Nigel King. So apologies from them. You'll find the report to the RTC on agenda page 50, which we're happy to take as read. But firstly, I'd just like to address for clarity that you've received two versions of the RLTP. So the one you received on Monday is the strikeout version, and that's our editorial version so that you can see all the changes that were made throughout the submission and deliberation process. The copy that is attached to the agenda is a final clean version of that. So where we have highlighted in red, you'll see the amendments in that copy, and where necessary, specific submitter requests have been included. So you'll see that at the end of some of that material there in red. So we've got their name in brackets. We needed this version as it also needed to go out to full council ahead of the meeting next Tuesday for approval of the plan, hence the two copies. So just for clarity. We'll take the committee through the development process since we last met in December, since it's been a while since we've all been together, and we'll run through the final changes in the draft RLTP. Are you happy with that? Yep. Okay, cool. Since our last meeting, the RTC subcommittee have held the hearing of submissions on the draft RLTP. We've held deliberations on staff recommendations and then translating the subcommittee's decisions on staff recommendations into the final strikeout document. So the plan represents, that is in your agenda pack, the culmination of work over the last 18 months by the RTC to develop a new RLTP for our region. The process has been quite challenging, given the amount of change we've had in developing the policy framework and draft program of transport activities under the previous Labor government policy direction. So a change of government coming in at the end of the draft RLTP's development with a significant change in policy direction, and then the new draft GPS not landing until the last day of consultation, confirming that significant policy change. We've also had NZTA's final State Highway Investment Proposal, or SHIP, not available until the hearing, and the result being a change required to the regional program. So because of all of this, some projects were removed, most notably NZTA's Metro Spatial Plan projects, and some were updated and new projects have come in. Just to note that submitters were unable to consider the final SHIP due to consultation timing. So this has all resulted in a challenge for the RTC subcommittee to work through. But key to this has been to consider two very important issues, which were, one, satisfying the statutory requirements for the RLTP to be consistent with the GPS, and two, satisfying the RTC and WRC who approved the final plan that the changes staff have recommended to the subcommittee to ensure the RLTP is consistent with the GPS did not represent a significant change to the draft RLTP that was consulted on, and therefore would trigger a need to reconsult. So the RTC hearing subcommittee has been guided by staff recommendations in the deliberations report, and we'd just like to commend the subcommittee on an excellent job in working through those two key issues. The changes you'll see to the RLTP in the strikeout, as I said before, are just a result of the decisions of the subcommittee has made and are asking the full RTC to approve today. So these changes also represent the views of stakeholders who submitted on the draft RLTP, and where appropriate, the submitter requests have been taken on board and the RLTP has been amended. The policy framework has been updated to reflect the draft GPS, and a tweaking of narrative where necessary to ensure the RLTP is consistent with the new government policy direction, and an update to the regional program, or Part B, including updated activities and financial information from RCAs as it rolled in, as they've worked through their long-term plans and enhanced annual plan processes. Also, the NZTA final SHIP has been included in the program, and the subcommittee has revisited the regionally significant prioritised list in Appendix H to include SHIP activities and GPS roads of national significance, or RONS projects such as Southern Links. You'll also see that most of the changes in the strikeout version are minor. This is because the draft RLTP was robust and still relevant, despite the change in GPS strategic direction. And just a reminder, at the very beginning, we talked about this still being the long-term view of the region and the region's priorities moving forward over the longer term. So overall, there were not a lot of explicit requests to change the RLTP, and a lot of submissions were largely supportive or raised broader issues that the RLTP alone cannot address. So these are things like funding, national issues, public transport, or speed limit requests. Most of the changes have been made to the program in Part B, and we have updated the tables and transport activities in Appendix G, H, and I to accommodate these changes. So in meeting the two tests, so the GPS consistency and the significance of changes, the RTC subcommittee was satisfied that the recommended changes to the document would enable the RLTP to be approved. So in terms of consistency, we made changes to reflect policy direction. Final SHIP has been incorporated into the program, and all the RONS projects have now been prioritised. This has also been done without compromising submitter views, as we've retained the relative order of key activities. So if you see that in Appendix H, page 193 to 202 of the agenda, for example, Bully Point is still at number 1. The Coromandel Resilience is still sitting at number 2, although it's slightly amended. We've also added in Southern Links and Cambridge to Piarere retains position as it was in the draft. So overall, it is now more consistent with the GPS. In terms of significance, the RTC subcommittee had legal guidance when considering this issue, given that the recommended changes make the RLTP more consistent with the GPS. The final ship was able to be brought into the program without compromising submitter views. In fact, the program changes satisfied more so a number of submitter requests. For example, we had a few requesting Southern Links being brought into the significant activities and retaining positions of Bully Point and Cambridge to Piarere, etc. So despite the GPS removing the previous climate change strategic priority, the decision was made to retain our regional focus with national direction, pending the release of an emissions reduction plan 2 and a final GPS, as Phil mentioned earlier. And submitters also supported the priorities in the draft RLTP. So this really concluded that we can proceed, and there is still a lot of policy churn with national policy still landing. So the final GPS, road safety objectives documents still to come, more information on RONs and roads of regional significance, funding announcements, funding reform, and program updates. All of this means that we will have to vary the RLTP at a later date, and it's better to do it all in one hit and wrap up a number of things together through the variation process. Given the timeframes and considering all of this, we now need the RTC to approve the RLTP, to go to WRC for final approval, to be lodged with NZTA by the 1st of August. This is a statutory requirement. The council meeting to approve the final RLTP was originally scheduled for the 25th of July. It's now been brought forward to the 25th of June, next Tuesday. So there's a quick turnaround in finalising the document. Given all of this, the RTC can be assured that the work of the RTC subcommittee has resulted in a robust RLTP, is consistent with the GPS and other statutory requirements, and that has been positively shaped by stakeholder input throughout the submission process. I'll now hand over to you, Mr. Chair, if you'd like to make further comment on the process or
well,
ask any
Kimberly, a
questions.
brilliant overview. I couldn't have said it much better, all the points that you made in that. So yeah, no, awesome. So any questions for Kimberly and the team, Julie or Ghana? I'd just like first of all thank the hearings committee for the work that they did through that overview that Kimberly said. It was hard with the GPS and the ship coming out late and the concerns. So just well done to get to this point, and also because it has to be presented to WRC next week, and then of course by the 1st of August. We've always been under a tight time frame right from the beginning of this process. But I think again, Kimberly, what you said, I think it was a pretty robust long-term plan even before it went out to submissions, and it wasn't too far off from the GPS that I like to think that anyway. So, Kevin?
More a comment than a question. Although the hearing subcommittee did quite a bit of work, I want to acknowledge the staff than we did, because without the background work, anything we did would not have happened. So it was significantly enabled by the team doing all the work behind the scenes. And I just want to put on record my thanks for all of that hard work. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Any other? Yeah, Claire?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I acknowledge it's a massive piece of work, and I think that the team's done a brilliant job. Thank you. I've just got really minor questions, I guess. The first one is to do with the monitoring program, I guess, that's signalled. I've got that marked as page 103, but I think that's the agenda pack. It was just that I'd really like, it says monitoring, but I'd like monitoring and performance. Yeah, because I'm really keen that it's not simply a case of giving us the numbers, but demonstrating the outcomes of being achieved. And
That's a
then,
good point. We can do that, yes.
well, I do appreciate that there's a lot of work to be done because it just says that you're signalling that you're going to be working out, a framework for monitoring, and I just like performance to be part of that as well. And then the template for accessibility, which is on page 115, it lists a lot of implementation things there, but in actual fact, I couldn't identify specific things that are going to make it easier for example, disabled, particularly wheelchair-bound people to get to a bus stop, or once they get to the bus, can they get on it and off it and things like that. It's just that Oliver, our previous disability rep, he said that that's one of the biggest challenges, that he can't get from his house to the actual bus stop. Yeah. So just wonder whether or not it could be a bit more explicit. I mean, it does say you're improving accessibility, but it, that not necessarily be enough of a focus. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you want
Julie.
to speak to that?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, there are public transport guidelines, and you'll obviously be aware that the regional council doesn't do the infrastructure associated with public transport. We only provide the service, but that is definitely something that we could take on board and work with our transport partners, our district councils too.
Yeah.
And maybe we can just put in a couple of words somewhere in here to say that we'll work towards best practice for accessibility.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, another concern I have is that, with the new GPS, I think footpaths are out of it at the moment, which is also going to be challenging. Yeah, because I agree, district councils are the ones that are building those footpaths or bringing them up to a higher standard. And that's going to be really challenging as well. Yeah. And then just the last thing that I wanted to check with you is on page 143, where again, it's the monitoring, it's talking about the length of cycleways. I'd really be keen to also include the number of users of the cycleways. Yeah, like in Cambridge in particular, we are putting in more cycleways. And I must say, there's a mixed reaction to it from the public. But when they see the number of people that actually use them, it just changes the whole attitude. Yeah, so that's all. But thank you very much.
Those are very minor things. We can
Thank you,
accommodate
Claire.
those. Thank you.
Angela?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, big thank you to the team as well. Just echo those thoughts that Councillor Taylor mentioned before. Yeah, I think what we've ended up with is really key for our regional priorities for the next 30 years. And taking that long-term view as well is really important, so we're not swerving all over the road when we do get a change of government. I just have one minor thing on page 209, which it's just a definition, but I'm happy to talk to you after the meeting, or I can mention it now. It just says Te Huia Hamilton to Auckland. I think it's really important that we get it right, that it's interregional passenger rail connecting Hamilton and Auckland, because that's really crucial with future funding options that we are trying to pursue to get that bi-directional travel going. But yeah, really happy with where it's ended up. I just had a question. Someone messaged me this morning saying that Minister Brown, I'm not sure if right now's the time, Minister Brown, celebrating record investment in public transport came out yesterday. But I'm struggling to see where the impact of that is felt, seeing that within what we've been told through most of our MSP investments have had to be pulled. So yeah, just wondering if anyone's got any insight. Maybe David, later on in your presentation, you might have some insight into where that investment's actually going, whether it's all been swallowed up with the nationwide ticketing, maybe if that's what he's referring to. But yeah, basically, seems to be at odds with what we're actually seeing through the dollars within our region.
Will respond to that now or in your
Yeah,
report?
look, there's nothing in my
Yeah,
presentation that addresses this. Suffice to say that level of investment doesn't necessarily reflect the spread of that investment. And so, yes, investment in public transport is significantly up, but it's not spread across the regions. It's very, very targeted to specific places and specific projects. And that's a deliberate choice by government and the board.
Thanks, David. Okay, if there's no other questions for the team, we've got a resolution here that the regional land transport plan approval for be received, and then the Regional Transport Committee confirms it is satisfied that the process of the public engagement of the draft regional land transport plan provided adequate opportunity to consider and respond to the release of the draft government policy in the land transport 24 to 35 and the final state highway investment proposal, and B, that the changes to the regional land transport plan as a result of incorporating the government policy statement in the land transport 24 to 34 and the final stage highway investment proposal are not significant enough to reconstitute or trigger a variation. Number 3 is that the Regional Transport Committee, having considered the relevant matters set out in section 14 of the Land Transport Management Act, confirms that it's satisfied that the Regional Land Transport Plan 24 to 54, 30 years, contributes to the purpose of the Act and is consistent with the draft government policy statement on the land transport. Number 4, that the Regional Transport Committee endorses the final Waikato Regional Transport Plan for 24 to 54, subject to minor editorial amendments on the recommendation of the Regional Land Transport Plan Hearing Subs Committee. And number 5, that the Regional Transport Committee lodges the final Waikato Regional Land Transport Plan 24 to 54 with Waikato Regional Council for approval as required under section 18B of the Land Transport Management Act 2003. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mover and a seconder, please. Yep, thanks, Angela. And a second, Claire. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Well done, Kimberly, Julie and Kana.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a real pleasure working with this committee, so thank you.
Okay, we're on to item 11, which is the State Highway Working Group minutes. The meeting held on the 16th of April, right by Mount Messenger. Phil.
Thank you. So you're page 211 of your agenda pack. These meetings with the State Highway 3 Working Group have been underway for some years, and it was acknowledged at the last meeting that the Taranaki Regional Council Regional Transport Committee receives the minutes of those meetings through their agenda, and we followed suit here. So happy to take all of that as read and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yep, Claire.
Yeah, I'm happy with the minutes. I couldn't get the flyover to work. I was kind of hoping you're going to play it for us.
I'm not sure we ever got a copy of that. The slide in the pack says it's too large to play, doesn't it?
It's pretty impressive, and I think the update, David, if I'm correct, that they now have the land to through the courts now, that they've been given the okay to carry the highway through, which was a bit of a stopping point. Can you get on it? Play it, because it is very impressive.
I'm going to give it a crack. One of those URLs. That's a good sign.
Oh.
I don't know where it's gone.
Yeah.
I'll have a look at that while you're going through some other items, and I might be able to
Show it later on. Okay, so we've got a resolution there that the report of State Highway 3 Working Group meeting be received. I'll move it. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Andrea. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. let Dave work on that. Okay, operational update. So we've got Trudy and Vincent to come forward. Morning, Vincent. Morning, Trudy. Catching you all on the hop because I'm fast and efficient today. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning, Chair and committee members. So Julie and I are here today to speak about the operational update report. So with your permissions, I will, Chair, I would like to take the report as read, but would wish to highlight a few things from the report. So since the last meeting, there hasn't been a lot of major changes. For the operations and delivery team, the focus is still on the Waipa EV project, rolling out new EV fleet and new timetables. We are still in the bidding phase, and we haven't got the latest in terms of patronage result for the latest quarterly result for this reporting. But the initial trend has been very positive. We are seeing some really good growth numbers during May and early June, and particularly during the peak hours for the Waipa, the new Waipa improvement. We also want to report that there's been some remedial works happening with the Waipa depot. This won't impact on the delivery of PT service in Waipa, but it does mean the council will still need to utilise some of the existing diesel bus fleet to meet the current timetable requirement. We do expect the remedial work to finish in the next couple of months. The other major work that is happening is the transport centre refit projects. As you walk past this morning, you will see a lot of work happening underground. Yeah, so the project is scheduled to complete over the next 4 to 5 months. And we will see a lot of new improvement and new features being added to the transport centre, including new shelter, new platforms, real-time display, and some of the improved amenities and other facilities. But I think the work will be delivered in a staged manner, so it will cause minimal disruption to their passengers or the users. In terms of the network performances, and my apology that some of the members will have seen the data from the Future for PT subcommittee, as we share the same data set. But going forward, I think the staff will apply different lens so to ensure that the information are presented in a different manner. Just to keep the information more interesting, so you won't receive the same information all the time. Just looking at the patronage, we continue to see some really good trend. And across the regions, we have almost reached our previous peak as recorded in 2019, prior to COVID. So this has been a key milestone for us. I think it's 4 to 5 years in the making to get back to where we were.
See Taupo leading the way, Vincent.
Oh, yes. It was
39%.
Yeah, there was a really strong growth over the last quarter for Taupo. So yeah, it's been a key milestone for us. There has been a lot of changes, our disruption over the last 3 or 4 years in terms of reduced timetables, driver shortages. So it's a really good sign for WRC in terms of getting back to where we were. And just looking across the region, all the district and network areas are showing really positive trend in terms of year-on-year growth. But just wanting to flag that the council will introduce fee changes from 1 July. And we are anticipating that this will have some initial impact to the patronage, but the result won't be in until probably later this year in terms of 3rd or 4th quarter when you'll start to see the effect of the fare changes. Yeah, and I think there's still a lot of information in the report, but we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Judy. Any questions for Judy and Vincent? Angela.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely stoked to see the results that we've recovered to numbers that were at pre-COVID levels. So yeah, really, really exciting. Just had a question around new fares from the 1st of July and really interested in the youth fare capping that we're implementing. So we'd love to see that data come through, and also the adult fare capping as well, just to see if there's any trends around regular users for that. But yeah, great work, team, on getting us back to where we need to go. And the growth is looking really, really strong moving forward. And what's really encouraging is all that growth around the wider region as well. It shows that people do want to use public transport to get to where they need to go, and they need to use it. And I think that our regional rating for PT and what that will enable from next year moving forward is just going to really strengthen what we can offer in the region and allow us to be a lot more nimble and respond to each community as their needs are made known. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, if there's no other questions, got a resolution here that the report operational update be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Jeanette. And Kevin, all those in favour? Those against? Carried. And Trudy, we'll get you to stay here for the next item. And then Dave's got that video, so we'll see that video after your item, bus back advertising report. Okay, Trudy? Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, look, I'd like to have the report be received and taken as read, but I will just give you a quick summary. There was a request to update on the bus back advertising and the procurement activity to support that. So, look, in brief, we are going out to market to procure the bus back advertising services. Currently, what does that mean? Revenue that could potentially generate is within the bounds of between 50 to 120k a year. We would look to offset that revenue against the bus contracted services costs. Obviously, they are more significant, but everything counts. At the moment, we're just stepping through the approval of these documents, and in the coming few months look to go out to tender and to award these, this piece of work. The delay has been ensuring that we incorporate the new fleet that's been introduced to the region, specifically with Waipa and the EV, and that type of vehicle also is a very compelling reason for advertising to go on the back. So yes, and look to just update as that is awarded in the coming months. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Trudy. Yeah, because I've been approached by a couple of businesses with a new EV down Taupo as well, so very prominent item this. So any questions for Trudy? If not, oh yeah, Angela, sorry.
Thank you. This is one of my pet projects. Is there a reason why not all advertising must have a thing down the bottom saying with a smiley face, please give way for the bus? Why can't every bus, why can't that be written into the contract? If you want to advertise on this bus, we'll get the revenue, thank you very much, but this must be on the bottom, because the bum of a bus is quite large.
Through the Chair,
Yeah,
and
Trudy.
in response.
Bumped you a little bit with that last comment, didn't it?
Look, as mentioned, these are still in draft. So CANAP's, when I say these, sorry, the documents to go out to tender, and within that is the policy that we will work within for the advertising guidelines. So this is absolutely an area we could include.
So what would I need to do to ensure that that happens, rather than just yes, okay, we'll think about it. I would have to add something to the motion, right?
So this was a conversation that had also occurred at the Future Proof PT subcommittee.
Yeah.
We
I know.
we recorded an action.
Boundaring at the
Yeah.
moment.
I suspect that one of the options here is that a section of the back of the bus is ruled out of bounds for advertising, so that that always has a flag sign on it.
Yeah.
And that we separately from the procurement of the wider advertising around the rest of the space. The alternative is that we try to ensure that that gets included in every design, and I think that means we're going to have a whole bunch of different styles and ways that advertisers want to use that. So I suspect the easiest option might be to just exclude that top corner or bottom corner or whatever.
So your first suggestion sounds pragmatic and simple to me. Do I need to add that to the motion, or just you'll bring it back? That included, your promise, pinky swear?
I think we have the action already identified through another committee. More than happy for that to
Okay.
be repeated
All
here
right.
if you wish.
I'll be quiet now.
It would be your
Yeah.
call.
I think it's in the future-proof.
PT.
Is that right, Angela? Do you want to?
Yeah, it's in the, as you say, the future proof, that on all bus backs. So I would assume that that would be region wide.
Okay, thanks, Angela. Okay, so we've got a resolution here, bus backing advertising, that be received. I have a mover and a seconder for that. Yep, thanks, Eugene, and I'll second it. All those in favour? It's against, carried. Okay, before David's presentation, we'll play that video because it is quite impressive. Rodney, would you like to comment on that, being a transport guy? Because I know when I was with the trucking company that I was with, this is a huge, development because it's another artery through the North Island that's quite significant to State Highway 1. Do you want to have a comment on that, Rodney?
Oh, we got taken up there and they gave us a bit of a tour around it. It's really quite impressive what they're doing. Apart from it's pretty much a main artillery route to Taranaki, obviously, and that road is, it's a little bit like North. You've got the Bryn Dunes can shut down all the time. Well, it's worse if Taranaki does because there's no ways around it. So no, it's pretty impressive what they're doing. But it's a bit of a grind over that hill. So I'm sure it's going to be a major saving and a major,
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that the apart from building the road, the amount of the pest improvement they're doing down there. Like I remember coming back one night and I thought, geez, I'm seeing things, and it was actually a kiwi on the road. So they're actually, they're doing a hell of a lot of pest control, and they've actually managed to, I don't think it'll be a good thing if the kiwis go on the road, but yeah, it's a good thing to see that sort of what they can do, like so that's an impressive part of it too. So no, it's obviously a big undertaking, but it's going to make a huge difference. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Thanks, Rodney.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go on to David's Oh, sorry, Jeanette. Did you comment on it? Yeah. Yeah, David. Morning. Well, we're going to finish early today, team. So rather than have a break, I'd rather just finish. We have got lunch if you want to stay behind, but I know everyone's busy and it's Friday, so to head off. We can have lunch in by 11:30 if you'd like to stay around. But yeah, is everyone fine with that? That we just have David's, and then we've got Angus online just to give a verbal report on KiwiRail. So okay. Yep, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to take a bit more extra time just to
That's okay. Yeah, we're happy with that.
No. Just on the Mount Messenger thing, really, really proud of the outcome there. There's some really amazing innovations to minimise the footprint of the work, because one of the challenges with particularly a state highway that scale, it's actually not the footprint of the road, it's the footprint of all of the associated land for fill and trucks and car parks and things whilst it's being built. And of course, it's going through some pretty sensitive bush. Ironically, I was the one that negotiated the mitigation outcome when I was in dock for this project. So my colleagues look at me sort of sideways sometimes. So I'm pretty stoked to hear that the Kiwis are, being seen on the road. There's actually a project to build a diversion fence just inside the bush to stop the Kiwis from crossing the road. But I don't know how that's going to work. It's experimental. So we'll see. But yeah, the sling to carry stuff in is just amazing piece of innovation. So we'll take the report as read as usual, unless there's any issues with that, and I'll just run you through the presentation. Now the presentation is now slightly out of date because of when we submitted it, and there have been some pretty big decisions made since then, so I'll update those verbally as we go. Next slide, please. So NLTB development, just a bit of an update. So feedback on the GPS closed the end of April. We are holding our breath for the final GPS, but of course you've all had the state highway investment. The SHIP and the IPM have been out. We've had feedback, and that feedback has closed. And obviously you'll all be aware that the indicative allocations for continuous programs were released on the 6th of June. Bit of a mixed bag there. A real juggling act for the board in terms of the priorities that they were given through the GPS and what they were and weren't able to fund. And for those that have had significant impact in terms of their continuous programs, we've had those conversations, and those conversations are ongoing. Next slide, please. Emergency work policy. So this is also now out, and you will all no doubt be aware of the reasonably significant implications of those changes. What I will say is those changes are exactly the same for us, and there is no more money. So we also will have to fit within our budget. We won't be able to go back to government and say, please, can we have some money for a 1 in 10 year event? We will have to find it from within our own NLTP budgets, and that is not insignificant, as you might imagine, for the state highway network. I acknowledge it's also not insignificant for many of you who have large and sensitive networks. So yeah, I can't say much more than that, except that it is what it is at the moment, and there is no more money. We've been told that loud and clear. So those far rate changes take effect from July next year. So pray for fine weather after July 2025. What it does mean though is that the increased funding that we collectively have received through the NLTP process for maintenance renewals on the network is what we need to focus on, so that the roads are more resilient when these events do come, and that's the sort of trade-off. So on the one hand, when those events come, that increased fire assistant rate won't kick in until 1 in 20-year events, and it will be less. On the other hand, we have collectively got more money to invest in the network to bring it up to scratch, and we're looking really hard at where we prioritise that. And there's a slide a little bit later, I think, talking about some of that. Next slide, please. So North Island weather event funding, we've confirmed nearly $1 billion in new spending through budget 24. Acknowledged that is less than we had hoped for and less than we had asked for. And that's the case for every road controlling authority as well, because collectively, of course, we all had, I won't even call it a wish list, we had a needs list. Again, we've got close to $1 billion, 609 million of that is state highway recovery work, 50 million for local road response works that are carrying on from the weather events in 23-24, and $280 million for for 24-25 to continue those recovery works, and that includes the likes, for example, for us of Coromandel, and there's a slide in a few slides just showing the ongoing work in the Coromandel, for example. Next slide. Quickly, safety camera program. So safety program slowed down a little bit from our aspirations a couple of years ago, but we are still progressing at albeit at a much smaller scale. We've got 12 camera sites in Auckland and 1 in the Waikato underway, so construction's underway. All the cameras are in place. There are some cameras that are about to be activated, and when I say activated, enforced. Yeah, that'll be a big change for people. What we are doing though is we are putting those cameras in, particularly the point-to-point cameras. We're very heavily signposting them, so there'll be no excuse for not knowing that you're about to enter into a new safety camera area, and that it's point-to-point. So it'll be interesting to see how many tickets are issued in spite of that. The benefits up there in terms of average speed cameras, and I think I've showed you this before, but your average speed camera, that's your point-to-point, has a 48% reduction in deaths and serious injuries, so it's huge. Very targeted. So the one site in the Waikato is State Highway 2, Maramarua, that notorious stretch of road. It's currently 90 kilometres an hour. We know from the speed survey we did before we put the camera in, the average speed exceeds that by quite a bit, and peak speeds through there are pretty scary. So we're hoping that has a huge and immediate impact in that stretch of road. And we continue to transition the New Zealand Police cameras into NZTA. Just a thing to reflect to you, as that happens, we are shifting those cameras onto a different network platform. And as Rotorua District Council will attest, what that means is that if you previously, for some of you, have had access to those cameras for your own local purposes, that access will cease because you won't be able to access that network anymore. We are working through a process at the moment about how we can restore that access. One, from a technical point of view, but more importantly, probably from a policy point of view, because as we take these cameras over, we have got to comply and prove that we are complying with the Privacy Act. And in a few cases, we're aware that some of the perhaps more casual arrangements we've had previously have been not 100% compliant with those requirements. There's no huge significant issue there. It's just that we need to tighten that up. So there's a little bit of policy work to do there as well. Next slide, please. Speed management update. This is the one that's out of date now because, of course, the speed management rule is out. It is out for submission. I strongly encourage you all to make submissions. The implications of the speed rule are not insignificant for some of you, Hamilton City particularly. I don't know how many hundred speed reviews you will have that you will need to reconsider, but it's many. So please, if you haven't already been engaged by your teams when you go back, if you talk about nothing else from this, please talk to them about the impact of the speed rule in your district. Essentially, if you have made a change since 2020, you will have to go back and review that change. If it's a reduction, you will have to go back and review that change. That includes school speed reductions, and do a cost benefit analysis for that. That is not an insubstantial piece of work. And there is no funding available for that in the NLTP. So the thing that the rule does do is it does set, ironically, blanket rules for all school speed zones, and its variable speed signs of 60 for rural schools and 40 for urban schools. But again, that will come for some of you at a cost of undoing and redoing signage, etc. So please have a look at that. Please have a really hard think about the costs of that to your organisation. The deadline for this to occur is June 2025. I could stop the presentation now and say that's the most significant thing that I need you to take away from this meeting. It will impact you significantly, some of you more than others.
Angela, do you want to just ask a question on that?
Yeah, so you're talking about this submission process that's open at the moment. Are we, is it just for TAs or is it anyone? Are we as a committee?
You can do it as a member of public.
As a committee, are we looking to form a submission view on this?
We're certainly working through the detail, and we had planned to propose that to you. It would be the committee's call as to whether you wanted us to prepare a submission on behalf of RTC.
Or if that's the case, all I would ask is that NZTA is noted as not participating in that. We are making a submission because this is Ministry of Transport policy. It's not NZTA policy. So we are making a submission as an organisation. Obviously, for the State Highway Network, it's got significant implications as well. That said, the thing I will say is we now have certainty about what is required in speed management, and that's honestly, that's a bonus. It's a much better place than we have been for the last 12 months.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to check when the submissions close for that.
20.
Do you know, Phil? I can't tell you the exact date. I think there's
It's
still a
very
couple of
short.
weeks to go.
Yeah. The next week, yeah. Yeah, 30th of June. Yeah.
Mid-July is my understanding.
Yeah, I'm
okay.
pretty sure there's a couple of weeks to go because I panicked somebody the other day by saying it was the end of June, but I was corrected that it was sometime in July. The other thing, that last bullet point about 110 speed limits is actually now, I think the rule says 120 where design allows. So we're having a wee scramble to check where that is the case on our network. It will be very, very limited, as you might imagine. It will only be the relatively new roads that are grade separated with medium barriers, etc. Potentially the expressway, but we're not sure. The implication that goes with that is it's not just about the physical nature of the road, it's also the noise limits that we're subject to in respect, because when you increase to 120 k's an hour, you obviously increase the noise. So that might actually restrict us in terms of ability to increase to that speed limit, depending on our consent conditions. Next slide.
Wait, sorry, David, just a question. Thanks, Chair. On that, and we had President of LGNZ visit Hamilton City Council yesterday, along with CEO Susan, and asked the same question of them. Does the MOT, does anyone understand the cost ramifications of winding this stuff back?
They will when you make a submission.
Wow. Yeah, and would that be, do those cost numbers, I guess, you'll get from us, and my sidekick helper has said 11th of July submissions have got to be in, so it's not a huge amount of time. But will you include that kind of work, that kind of quantum in your submission as well? Is that something you're able to do to support?
So we're doing that work at the moment
Yeah.
to have a look at what the implications for us are on the State Highway Network.
Yeah.
And they're not insubstantial.
Yeah.
But to be honest, they're likely to be more substantial for the likes of yourselves.
Oh.
Tauranga City Council.
we'll be looking at tens of millions of dollars if we have to wind back investment that we've put in on our road network, tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, and look, I think the thing I would encourage, and I've been talking with your team, so with
Yeah.
Andrew and co,
Yeah.
is to really go through the rule and work out what it actually means for each of those.
Yeah.
Because for some, it's actually less than you might think in terms of the impact, but for others, it's quite significant.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the examples was your pack and save situation where.
Oh,
you
don't
know,
even get me started on that. I mean, that's a legal dog's breakfast, that one.
Yeah, so it's a really complicated situation that
Yeah.
needs to be thought through. It might not be as bad as you
You're
think
right.
in respect of that one,
Yeah.
because it's enabling economic growth. It's got, it hits some of the triggers that are in the rule.
Yeah.
So on the face of it, you might go, oh my gosh.
Oh,
Actually, when you look through that,
we went
talking
through so
with
much.
Chris,
Yeah.
well, when I talked to Chris and talked through it, and I said, well, what
Yeah.
about this and what about this?
Yeah.
He's kind of going, well, it might not be as bad as we think. So I don't want to be alarmist. All I want to say is it's a substantive change. It will impact you. Have a really good look and definitely make a submission. Eugene.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Geez, I think all of our teams are getting really, really good at doing the submissions lately, and on very, very short notice with emails flying around for approval late at night. It's never ending. Just comment, David, you mentioned post 2020 any speed reductions that we would have done or councils would have done need to be reviewed or reconsulted?
Yes.
Okay. That piece there is significant, especially seeing we've done quite a bit since 2020.
Absolutely.
A lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, next slide. It's surprisingly few, actually. So just a bit of a Waikato update. Just a photo there of our favourite roundabout, State Highway 129. Don't like to have favourites, but this one's pretty cool. It's progressing really, really well. That photo's probably out of date now, but it does give you a sense of how things are shaping up at that intersection. You can actually see a roundabout now. And if you follow that, photo through the roundabout and sort of head straight, kind of follow that fence line where there's that lone kakatea. Is it a kakatea? Whatever it is, that lone tree. Off to the left, that's the future direction of the Cambridge to Piareti, or I should say, Cambridge to Piareti Expressway. So there's an extra little tag on the end of the roundabout for that to enter into the roundabout. It's progressing really well. You can see on the sort of right-hand side of the roundabout there, the tunnel for the pedestrian underpass. And so that is, I think, now completely covered up, actually. And at some point, there'll be a giant pit in the middle of that roundabout with a big sculpture in the middle of it as well when we finally open it. So, yeah, things are progressing there really well. It's on track, on budget, on everything at the moment. So, touch wood, we've had a brilliant season. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that'll be a life changer for people that travel between Tauranga and Hamilton every day. It really will. So we can't wait for that one. Once a week I get told there's a better design and there should be a flyover, and yeah. Look, it is what it is. It's cost effective. It's future proofed out to beyond 2050. So it's a pretty good investment. Next slide. Oh, and there's some more detail about it. Yeah, so at the moment there's a big focus on that Te Rau end because we want to get that built so that that's ready to tie in first. And so I think it's towards the end of the year when we'll redirect the traffic off the little bypass that we've built. And yeah, construction expected to take 2 years. We're now good 6 months into that, or 8 months into that. So it's less than 2 years now. Next slide, please. So Coromandel, just a little bit of insight. So this is, I mentioned earlier that we've still got quite a lot of work to do in terms of the North Island weather recovery. We recently did a day of visits with our executive team, and we talked to them about Coromandel, and we deliberately didn't talk to them about State Highway 25 Bridge because that kind of grabbed all the limelight for a while. What we wanted to point out to them was that actually there's still 70 odd sites, active sites, going in the Coromandel. We've completed 77 sites other than the bridge. There's still work underway. There's some big sites. Ruamahanga, as you'd appreciate, is a massive piece of work. Furatoa Hill, Karangahaki Gorge, those are our focus at the moment. And over the winter, we'll be backing off that significant earthworks that you can see on the photo and just focusing on drainage for obvious reasons, and then kick back into the work. So, yeah, other than the bridge that grabbed all the limelight, we have done a huge amount of work up there, and there's still a huge amount to go. Len's not here today, but you might want to comment on. Yeah, and look, the other day when Ruamahanga was closed, I got the text message and I thought, oh no. I've been up, I've flown over it, and what you don't see from the road with Ruamahanga are these big C-shaped slip faces where the whole hill is moving down. So we've had crews up there drilling and putting drainage and all sorts of it's all invisible. You can't see any of it. But it's really about dewatering that slip face, because the size of that slip face is bigger than this building by 4 or 5 times. And so you can imagine the volume of material. So when that call came through, I thought, oh no, and it was just a couple of trees. So, but yeah, I just wanted to highlight that that's still, it's not over. We're still working here, and I know that over in State Highway 35 things are also pretty grim, but we've got our own big piece of work that's still a long way to go. On the upside, it's pretty amazing work that's been done at some of these sites. Yeah, we're gradually getting there. Next slide. Is that the last one?
Yeah,
okay.
that's the last one.
I did briefly want to talk, Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, about the surge program that's coming up. So we've got, we've been challenged by the board and the minister to find more efficient ways to do the physical works we have to do on the state highway network. As you all know, we've been given pretty big funding injection to do a lot more recovery and resilience and rehabilitation work on the network. State Highway 1 between Cambridge and Waiouru, really, or Tito and Waiouru, is by far the worst piece of road on the network. It's 50% of the faults in our entire region are on that piece of network. We have come up with a plan, and we are discussing this with the affected councils at the moment, that involves us shutting State Highway 1 completely in large sections over the next 2 years to do that rehab work. What it means is the investment in traffic management is substantially less. It also means the delivery time is hugely increased, because we can work in some sites, we can work 24 hours, well, close to 24 hours. We don't have to stop. We don't have to put in contraflow. We don't have active lanes, and the savings are substantial in the tens of millions of dollars if we can make this work. It also means that we can do 5 years worth of work in 2 years. So starting September, subject to our consultation with affected local authorities, so Waipa, South Waikato, Taupo, Matamata-Piako, all affected, Otrahonga, because and the reason they're affected is because of the diversions. So we will have to put diversions in place on local roads, some on state highways. We're going to try and move the majority of freight traffic onto State Highway 3 while we're doing these works. So we are talking with your teams now. We will continue that conversation. We are doing the assessments, starting the assessments now on the northern end of the diversion. So we're going to work north-south. Obviously, it's a bit warmer at the moment, and as the summer kicks around, the southern areas will become more accessible right down to Waiouru. So just a heads up that program is underway in earnest from September, and it will be a very different way of working. We're going to have to manage some pretty big disruption for commuters, particularly freight, but we're working really closely with freight guys at the moment on how that program's going to run.
So, just
Kevin.
through the chair, quick question for me. Given when you end up at our end of State Highway 1, when the weather warms up,
Yep.
and given the alternate route between Taupo and Turangi is an additional close to 100 kilometres, be good to have some more detail
So
earlier.
what I thought we had shared was this little map. What we've done is, and this is what we're talking with your teams about at the moment around logistics, is we've remapped all of the routes, and then we've staged the works and said, if we do this bit of work, what's the optimum diversion route? Where can we get freight moving, etc. We're talking around the logistics teams at the moment. So there's some really interesting curveballs. For example, Taupo hosting the World Ironman Champs. And so, the last thing we want is huge diversions and disruption in place when that event's occurring. So those sort of logistics are also of significant concern.
Can I respectfully suggest those kind of decisions with the event calendar we've got, it's very much a political decision. And I appreciate talking to the teams, but these are really big ticket items.
Oh, yeah. Look, and we will avoid that one. But yes, the intent is as we work through the logistics with your teams, we will then come and have that higher level conversation about, hey, here's what we're thinking. We've started the conversation with South Waikato District Council at that level already because they're first off the cab in terms of being impacted. Waipa's not far behind. But yeah, our principal kind of target is to drive freight down 3 and 4 and use, for example, State Highway 41 and 47, use State Highway 5. We know that comes at a cost. That's the kind of conversation we're having at the moment. And there's obvious other parties like Fonterra, for example, that it's just not that easy, right? So there will be provision made in each of those sites for escorted access while we're doing the works. But, even if you can get 95% of the traffic off, your costs go substantially down.
David, I just got Rodney online. Just Rodney.
Yeah, David. Just because generally shutting the roads is, what's at least when they're shutting and the work gets done quicker. So I'm kind of in favour of that personally, anyway. But I'm just wondering, like State Highway for HPMV, which is high productivity motor vehicles, big or heavier trucks, basically not bigger trucks but heavier. State Highway 4, you can't actually. They finish there, and they actually finish it. You can't take a HPMV on the State Highway 3 through Otrahonga. There's no way through Otrahonga, apart from using the local bypass we've got. Are they going to you're going to look into doing the upgrading of bridges or upgrading so that you can take full HPMVs down those other routes? Or?
Yeah, Rodney, that's the level of detail that the teams are having conversations about, are starting at the moment, is exactly that, because it's very easy to draw a line on a map until you find out that the bridge in the middle of the line can't carry a 50-ton truck. So yeah, no, we are definitely doing that level of conversation, and I've seen the sort of first draft of. I mean, the map I just showed Kevin is a very, very coarse one. I've seen the level of detail that they're going down to, and it's down to individual sections of individual local roads.
Yeah, because I know, like for instance, when they were doing the bridge on State Highway 39 in Anapuri, they let trucks go through Otrahonga. They put a plastic bag over the 44-ton limit sign, so obviously the bridge could handle it for short, But that's what you're. So whether that can happen again, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really good example where there are bridges that are physically capable of carrying HPMVs for short periods of time at low speeds, and that's manageable. But under normal traffic conditions, with them going over every day, it would shorten the life of the bridge by half. So we limit, for obvious reasons, we limit the bridge capacity. So yeah, what you see as the limit is not always the actual structural limit. So in those cases, what they will do is do exactly what you described. They'll chuck a plastic bag over the sign and they'll say, if you're going at 20 kilometres an hour, you can cross this bridge. And that's the sort of, we need to have a very detailed conversation with the heavy vehicle industry about how we manage that over that period of time.
You know, thank you. Yeah,
Thanks,
that's-
Rod. Claire?
Yeah, thanks, David. It's pretty amazing. I really appreciate early access to maps, you know, like Waipa's affected. And when's the likely start date?
So we're planning to start the first works in September. They're quite targeted.
Yeah.
And in part that's because not done this before on a big scale. Want to do some targeted start and see how it goes. But essentially in September for the next 2 years.
Yeah, so you'll be able to circulate those maps to us.
Yeah, so the impact, for example, on Waipa will be the diversion through State Highway 3, which has got, you know, implications for Otrahonga, Ohaupo and Te Amutu and
Yeah.
not so much that we'll be closing the roads there. In fact, I think in your district, we're not closing any of the roads,
Yeah.
but it will obviously,
we notice
diversion, you'll notice the difference.
Yeah, it'd be good for us to know that. No, thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Kevin?
Yeah, just going back to my earlier comment around information. Conscious this is a public meeting, but I'm also conscious if I think out loud within our own council chamber about the context of what you've just shared with us, I'm going to get inundated with questions, none of which I'm going to be able to answer. So I guess at the moment, I'm probably not going to say very much, which is not going to be helpful for the rest of my colleagues. Is there anything you can share now that just a heads up? Or is a preference that we just wait?
No, I think I'm really comfortable with you sharing the heads up that I've given with the expectation that the team and I will be visiting very soon to have that conversation. And the reason we haven't done that thus far is that we are working with your teams to understand the detail. Because inevitably, if I come to your council table, I'm going to get from your councillors, what about XY Road? And I'm going to say, I don't even know where XY Road is. I'm sorry. So I would rather come with the map that says, yes, here's XY Road. And the team have talked about that. And we know about that bridge, as Rodney's just pointed out. So in the next month or so, we will be in a place to come and have that conversation. So share that context, but also share with them that, you know, the details coming.
Thank you. And I'll finish it with hurry up and wait.
Adrian?
Yeah, I guess that's the same for me as around the comms and also understanding what some of the unintended consequences of some people might do and taking local roads, you know, like it's those things. It's like when trucks are going through Scotsman's Valley to avoid Highway 1. I think the comms here is going to be really important because I'm just so aware that people do not like being inconvenienced these days with road closures and that, you know, they get their expectations are so high. There's got to be that understanding. Well, in order for you to drive on the road for the next 5 years, we've got to do this work. And it's work smarter, not harder. So
I think it's the time frame as well. As David said, you know, from 5 years down to 2 years.
That's significant.
You know, yeah, it's huge. I know when we had the Artamori, which is, you know, pretty significant, the roadworks there, and it's just about towards the end. I think that's probably a 10K area. They closed that a couple of times and we went around Poiapi and it wasn't, you know, an extra 15 minutes, but to have it now just about finished on an earlier time, I think their time frame's ahead too, isn't it, David?
Yes.
That Artamori stretch.
Yeah, good weather helps significantly too.
Yeah.
But it's just, it is that comms and just because people are just, their expectations are sort of, like I have to say it, a bit unrealistic sometimes. It's like when they do power work and they, you know, they begrudge the power being off, but it's, well, do you want power cuts? You know, this is it's about resilience. So got to be some good comms work and got to work with our local councils.
We are developing the comms at the moment. It's always really hard to do general public comms because, you know, you read something and then 2 weeks later you jump in the car and you rock on down State Highway 1 and it's closed. And you think, what? Hang on a minute, what's going on? So we are working on the comms. The business case for this is very strong. I mean, we're talking about ballpark out of a $42 million expenditure, $13.8 million of savings by doing it this way. You know, that's not insubstantial. That's $13 million we can spend on something else. So, you know, it's extraordinary. There's 1,400 heavy vehicles a day on State Highway 1. So that's the level of diversion we're talking about.
I guess it's telling that story
Yeah.
so that people understand. The average
Yeah, they're big numbers. And as Rodney will attest, you know, if those heavy vehicles are going over potholes and rough road and things, there's a real cost to that, to the industry. If the short-term pain means that that network of 220 kilometres is in 2 years is all done, then that cost of damage, tyres, axles, whatever, is gone for quite a long period of time. So yeah, we think it's well worth doing.
Yep. So David, if you just get that email out to the committee members here on the map and any of the bullet points, because you know, the TAs might even put it in their you know, media outlets as well, just especially the ones that it concerns them the most, because that also helps develop in the local area of what's happening and why it's happening. You know, like that 5 year to 2 year and the savings, and you know, just it all adds to the story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's the presentation.
Okay, no more. Angela?
Yeah, just wanted to completely different topic, but yeah, just publicly say a huge thank you to the NZTA board for the recent decisions around Te Hauia and what that means for our region. So yeah, a big thank you for all that you've done, David, and advocating for our regional priorities. So yeah, thank you from all of us around the table. Yeah, appreciate it.
So Angela, would you like a letter sent from this committee to Waka Kotahi? Just to say thank you?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, and just from my point of view, I've said this before, but I will reiterate that I think the big pat on the back goes to your guys, your team, because man, they, through Phil, I think with his leadership, did a really good job of telling the story really well. The comments from the board were that they hadn't appreciated that Te Hauia was doing as well as it was until they read the report. So, you know, it's credit goes that way.
Okay, thank you, David. All right, we've got a resolution there that the report Waka Kotahi cross-functional update be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Thanks, Andrea and Claire. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, morning, Angus, if you're online.
Koto.
A verbal update on KiwiRail.
Sure. Well, given that lovely end there to David's item on Te Hauia, I'll start there and say the same thing that David just said, which is an acknowledgement to Waikato Regional Council laws and officials for your leadership. That is the reference there to the report, and the quality of it is well made. All credit to the people who are involved in writing it. It is thorough and fair and even-handed, and there are some good ideas for how we can carry on with further efficiencies too. So just want to reiterate our thanks to you guys as your operator of the service, and call out some of the figures that I know you will have read in your report, but 23% up in terms of patronage year on year from Q1 against Q1 last year, 23% up. That's fantastic. Our arrival on-time performance within 15 minutes is 93% in a busy Auckland network. Also a really fantastic result. And services delivered to schedule is 99%. So we're happy to keep at it. And our thanks goes to Waikato Regional Council and NZTA for the funding decision. So thanks all. I was asked to come along today just to give a bit of an update about where we're at with our next rail network investment program. And I thought I'd just try to make people clear about where we are in the process, because the process is long. It's a transport piece, of course, and relatedly give you a sense for how this connects to the government's decisions in Budget 2024. So as a reminder, the ARNIP is like NZTA's State Highway Investment Program. It fits in as part of the overall National Land Transport Program, but it's different because, one, it's prepared by us instead of NZTA, and it's approved by the Minister of Transport with advice from the NZTA board. What it includes is two activity classes, the first one being rail networks, that does maintenance and renewals across the national network. The second one being the rail allocation of the public transport infrastructure activity class, which is NZTA's co-funding with councils of the maintenance and renewals in Auckland and Wellington. As I say, different approval process, Minister approves, not the NZTA board. A key input is that the NZTA board needs to finalise their NLTP, and that provides us our PTI allocation. As you know, we're still a couple of months away from the NZTA board being able to do that. So I just want to be clear with people that we won't actually have a published ARNIP until probably late this year. because those other process points just need to all line up, and we're one of the sort of latter pieces, just so people are clear. That said, you should have a pretty good indication of where things are going when the final GPS is released in a few weeks' time by the government, because that will take into account decisions from Budget 2024. The key one with respect to rail or the national network rather, is a decision to allocate $200 million to the ARNP, and accompanying statements from the government to carry on with a steady level of investment around national network investment. So we would expect to prepare an ARNP and to have one that's approved and published later in the year that is reasonably similar to the level of activity that you're currently seeing on the network, which is a positive piece. There is, of course, a different complexion around what the expectation is on us. So the previous one could have been characterised as being an expectation for every part of the network to be lifted to a resilient and reliable standard. The expectation now is to put emphasis on that resilience and reliability piece on the most productive, busiest parts of the network, being places like the Golden Triangle, lines like on the west coast of the South Island where there's critical export volumes coming out of there, and trying to be as efficient and productive as we can be, which I think is a reasonable expectation on any transport provider. So similar levels of activity, but a slightly different emphasis, I suppose. In terms of the metro sides of things, there are also some pretty major commitments from the government in Budget 2024. The first was committing $159.2 million for Auckland's rail network rebuild. For context, that rebuild is getting right into the foundations of Auckland's infrastructure, digging right down underneath the drainage, underneath the ballast, going right into the foundations of where our track is, some of which hasn't been touched since it was built, most of which has, but getting right down to that bottom piece, addressing all of the drainage. This is about getting Auckland ready for when City Rail Link is completed in 2 years' time. It is a massive program. It started in 2022, but the final 2 years of that program was not funded. It is now funded, and it is a massive advance for us, and we're really bloody happy to carry on with that work. It's important for us, and it's important for Aucklanders, and it's important to Waikato too, because Auckland's network is a real choke point when it comes to the freight flows on the Golden Triangle, and it's also where Te Huia is running. So it's really important we get that working as well as we can. So that was a major advance. The second element of Budget 24 was an allocation of $107 million for Auckland to Wellington. There is a large backlog over many years now of renewals which should have happened in their year when they came up for life expiry that weren't able to be done because of historic underinvestment by councils and government. Next year that is going to be funded. That $107 million will go to Wellington and Auckland. I'm not saying anything out of school because the Minister said this himself yesterday at the Select Committee. His priority is on those backlogs. The exact split is yet to be determined. There is still some work we're doing with AT and Auckland Transport and Greater Wellington Regional Council around ensuring that their on-time renewals and their maintenance shares are fully funded. The Minister gave an indication that we're pretty much there with GWRC, but there's a bit of a gap to do with Auckland Transport. So we're close, but not quite there yet. So discussions are still underway. But at a big level, what we will see in the next year is that Auckland's rail network investment, Auckland's rail network rebuild will be delivered. We will be ready for City Rail Link, and people will expect to see that they realise the benefits of that major investment. City Rail Link will allow more frequent trains to run in that city. It will allow a much better performing rail network in Auckland, and we're going to be getting this network ready for it. You're going to see all of those major improvement projects that have been started for the last few years come to a close over the next year, which is a really positive piece. Major ones like Papakura to Pukekohe electrification. There'll be trains running down there again early next year, which is a really positive thing. So a lot of the work that's been going on, we're getting to a point where we're nearing completion, which is really exciting. And these budget allocations help us to carry on with the work. I'll stop there and open up to any questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Angus. Angela?
Yeah, thank you, Angus, for your presentation. Yeah, and it's really great to hear the investments that are being made in the Auckland network, which will, flow through to freight and passenger rail, as you said. Hey, just just thinking forward as well for the Waikato network, also going over to Tauranga. Just wondering if maybe at a future committee we could get an update on current assets and state of the rail network within the Waikato, and where we, that future plan of where we could see improvements, possible double tracking going up between Hamilton and Auckland, electrification, just a real future vision of what is possible. Plus also hand in hand with that, I suppose, is the decarbonisation of the rolling stock as well for freight and passenger rail, and what that would enable going east to Bay of Plenty as well. So just keen to hear where KiwiRail is thinking future focused with rail in our region. I just think it could be an exciting thing to share with the committee, and also what's possible as well. Yeah, once all the money's finished going to Auckland and Wellington, we could be next next train on the track.
Yeah, thank you. And just to give some reassurance, there is already quite a lot of funding going towards the Waikato. Golden Triangle is an incredibly important part of the rail network, and it is already getting priority and will continue to. The government's policy statement has been pretty explicit about that. So just to give that level of reassurance. Really happy to come back and give a presentation alongside our asset management team about the state and condition of the network, and how that informs what the level of investment is in our ARNIP. I think the best point to do that will be late in the year when we've got an approved ARNIP. So I'll have a chat with Phil about what is the right timing, but I totally understand and see the need for people to get that level of understanding. It's a really, really good point. Thank you. And I think around the same time, if not sooner, if we can, those updates around the business cases we're doing on double tracking and around the electrification piece, happy to provide an update at the same time too. No worries.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Angus. If there's no other questions, we got a resolution here that the report KiwiRail Rail Network updates be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Thank you, please. I'll move it. A seconder. Thanks, John. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Right, thanks, team and staff, for today's committee meeting, and we'll finish off the karakia. Phil.
Unihia mai te uru tapu nui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te hininaro, I te aratakutu, koiara e rongo e whakarea ake ki runga, kia tina, huie, tākie.
Thanks, team. So as I said, lunch will be here at 11:30, and I'm sure there will be plenty for the staff too if they want to stay behind with us, because some will probably be heading off, I'd say, not hanging around for 15 minutes. Thank you very much.